Hare Krishna. This morning we will discuss verse 5 from the first chapter of the fourth canto. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nastabesya Bhatraso Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavat Uttamas Loke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Aninye svahayam putram vidatarocisam svayambhuva modayukto ruchir sagraha dakshinam. I will be reading the word-for-word translation and then the translation and the purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Word-for-word translation. Aninye brought to Svagriyam home, Putriya born of the daughter, Putram the son, Vitatam Rochisam very powerful, Svayambhuva the Manu named Svayambhuva, Muda being very pleased, Yukta with Ruchi the great sage Ruchi, Shakraha kept, Dakshinam the daughter named Dakshina. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Swayambhuva Manu very gladly brought home the beautiful boy named Jahya, and Ruchi, his son-in-law, kept with him the daughter Dakshina. The purport. Swayambhuva Manu was very glad to see that his daughter Akuti had given birth to both a boy and a girl. He was afraid that he would take one son, and that because of this his son-in-law Ruchi might be sorry. Thus when he heard that a daughter was born along with a boy, he was very glad. Ruchi, according to his promise, returned his male child to Swayambhuva Manu and decided to keep the daughter whose name was Dakshina. One of Lord Vishnu's names is Jahya because he is the master of the Vedas. The name Jahya comes from Jayusampatihi, which means Lord of all sacrifices. In the Yajurveda, there are different ritualistic prescriptions for performing Jahyas, and the beneficiary of all such Jahyas is the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Shakhnachtat karmana, one should act, but one should perform one's prescribed duties only for the sake of Jahya or Vishnu. If one does not act for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or if one does not perform devotional service, then there will be reactions to all one's activities. It does not matter if the reaction is good or bad, if our activities are not dovetailed with the desire of the Supreme Lord, or if we do not act in Krishna consciousness, then we shall be responsible for the results of all our activities. There is always a reaction to every kind of action, but if actions are performed for Jahya, there is no reaction. Thus, if one acts for Jahya or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is not entangled in the material condition, for it is mentioned in the Vedas and also in the Bhagavad Gita that the Vedas and the Vedic rituals are meant for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. From the very beginning, one should try to act in Krishna consciousness. That will free one from the reactions of all material activities. So, I repeat the verse once again. Aninye svagriham putrya putram vitatarochisam svayambhuvo muda yukto ruchirchakha dakshinam. Swambhuva Manu very gladly brought home the beautiful boy named Chakya, and Ruchi, his son-in-law, kept with him the daughter Dakshina. Om Ajnanatimandasya Chanam Shalakya Saksuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chitchitayamanopistam Staptam Yena Bhutale Svamrupakadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiyuda Padakamalam Shirum Vaishnavamsha Shirupam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvri Vishavana Sutta Devi Pranamama Haripriye Pankha Kalptra Vishakhe Pasana Visha Patnam Pavanavyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Chi Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvisis Sunyavadi Paskachari Desatarani. Hare Krishna, good morning. So we have here this extraordinary situation of Swambhuva Manu offering his daughter in marriage, but to a boy, but with the condition that if a son is born, it is returned to Swambhuva Manu, that and his wife Satarupa. That our commentators, they have deeper insights into this, and the reason why he was doing it, that he was aware that the Lord would incarnate, that there would be the Lord would appear as Jahya, and he wanted the Jahya to be his son. Well, it's an extraordinary system. This is what these great kings did, and it's also allowed in the Vedas, that is according to the scriptures. But of course, Swambhuva Manu and Satarupa, they were not ordinary persons, even not ordinary devotees. So Srila Prabhupada in the purports writes about Shakya, and he refers to this verse of Bhagavad Gita that Shaknatra Karmanoyatra Lokoyam Karma Bandhana. If you do a sacrifice or you perform devotional service for Vishnu, no karma bandhana. So karma bandhana means no reactions, because that is it is like a soldier. When a soldier fights in the war and he kills the enemy, he gets a medal later for his heroic deeds. But if one kills someone in time of peace, one will be convicted for murder. It's the same principle here. Whatever we do for Krishna will have no reaction. But if we not perform devotional service, there will be reactions, and these reactions are of two kinds. That's vikarma and karma, so-called good karma, good reactions and bad reactions. Because we are in this world because we want to be the controller. And Krishna, although he didn't want us to come here, he reluctantly agreed, okay, you want to do that, you want to play God, good. And he allowed it, but he gave us this material body, and he taught us, you want to control, then you should be responsible for your actions. The Krishna wants us to be responsible. And that means that Krishna has arranged that in this world, if we act as controllers, which is his position, then we get reactions, good or bad. But we get reactions. And this is a person with a little intelligence. He will not do that. That is very careful, because in the, I think it's 5:22, Yi samspasya boha dukha yonya evate atyant vantakantya nati shuramati buddha. The learned sages have decided that, or concluded that, one who performs acts for enjoyment, he may get enjoyment, but there is a price. The price is suffering. The suffering comes later. And it is not worthwhile. It is all very temporary. Mostly our enjoyment is very short. Eating a pizza 10 minutes, and then the pain of the hunger appears a few hours later again, and we want to eat again. Or we have to work the entire week, and then in the weekend we are going to enjoy, but it's going so quick, and it's Monday again. So this kind of enjoyment causes suffering, and Who is that sane man who wants to suffer? Nobody wants to suffer. Therefore, internally, a devotee is different from a non-devotee. You have this verse in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita that it says, apoyamanam achala pratishtam samutra napa pavishanti advat. Tatvat kamayam pavishanti sarve sasanti matnoti nakami kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enters like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not a man who strives to satisfy such desires. What does it mean? Many desires pop up into our mind. That a conditioned soul thinks these desires come up, yes, these are my desires. But where do desires come from? We know the soul, the symptom is consciousness, but activity is attachment or desire. Some desires come from the soul, but many desires come from our subconsciousness. They are desires we had in our previous lives, many previous lives. And what happened with these material desires in previous lives? Dayate visyapum samsangheste sabachayate sangha sangyate kama kamkod vijayate. We meditate on something, we become attached, we develop lust, we want to enjoy, we create expectations, the expectations are not fulfilled, anger comes, it's never satisfied. And that is also what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Avtam jnanam etna jnanina nityavarna kamarupena kantya dushpranan alenasha. This lust covers one's intelligence, makes one identify with the body, and it's never satisfied. It's like ghee putting on fire to put it out. One wants more and more. When some persons did a survey for billionaires and asked them, they had all 1 billion, what do you want? And they all said, we want 2 billion. Never satisfied. So these are unsatisfied desires. And Krishna knows that he is a super soul. He was a super soul in our previous life, it's still with us. And he knows, he desired that in his previous life. So Krishna as a super soul takes this desire from previous life, comes from our subconsciousness, and it pops up into our mind. That's an important source of desires, but desires can also come by associating in this life with material nature. It develops by attachment, meditating on things. Or desire can also come from the environment. That if you are situated in an environment of sense enjoyment, then you want sense enjoyment. That's natural. And that it's influenced. But this verse 270 says, these desires come up into the mind, and the devotee is not disturbed by it. That he becomes an observer of his mind. That's the difference between a non-devotee and a devotee. A devotee knows I'm not the mind. So he observes the mind and he thinks, what kind of desire is this? Oh yeah, that's a material desire. And in Bhagavad Gita it is said, if I fulfill that desire, I will get reactions and suffer. So I don't want it. And desire then disappears forever. But the non-devotee, first, he identifies with the mind. He thinks, I'm the mind, I'm my thinking, feeling, and willing. But he does not know that the soul has its own thinking, feeling, and willing, which has become inactive now. It becomes active when we start to perform devotional service and we become purified. That's explained in the purpose of 175, 176, 177 of the Bhagavatam. There Prabhupada writes, the spirit soul has its own thinking, feeling, and willing in the unconditioned state, in the liberated state. That it is like, Krishna, we wanted to come to this material world, and Krishna said, are you sure? And we said, yes, I'm sure. Are you really sure? Yes, yes, we said, we want to experience to be the controller. And Krishna said, yeah, okay, but the first thing is you have to forget me, because I'm the real controller, otherwise there is no fun. But he said you have to be responsible. I give you this subtle and gross body to act as a controller. Because with your spiritual body, you cannot do that. A spiritual body can only be used in the devotional service. So we get a covering of this gross and subtle body. And Krishna said, you try to become God, okay? But you have to be responsible. Every action will have a reaction. That's the material life. So a conditioned soul, when these desires pop up into his mind, he identifies with the mind as his self, and he thinks that's my desire. Although Krishna puts it, this desire from his previous life in his mind, he immediately grabs it, it's my desire, and thinks, yes, that's a good idea. And it will work. This time it will work, but it will never work. It's just action, reaction. So that's the difference between the liberated and the conditioned soul. And that is Krishna's teachings in Bhagavad Gita. Shakhnarta karmano yatra lokayam karmabandhana. And then further he says, you should offer all your food to me. And then different sacrifices are described. And that continues in the 4th chapter. At the end of the 3rd chapter, of course, in Bhagavad Gita, he explains how to get liberation. You have to understand that you are not the mind. Higher than the mind is the intelligence. Higher than intelligence is the soul. And Krishna's solution is at the end of the 3rd chapter. One should hear transcendental knowledge and feed its intelligence. Transcendental knowledge gives us, explains how to act as a spirit soul, not as the body. And then when we hear it, the soul becomes attached and pushes us, the intelligence, yes, you apply it. And then the intelligence engages the mind and the senses in devotional service. And therefore, we should always engage in devotional service. Without stoppage, without interruption. Because that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Udridatman atman atmanam avasadyat atmeva yatmanavambur atmeva ripur atmana. So the mind can be your enemy or your friend. It's your friend when it's controlled. It's your greatest enemy when it's uncontrolled. So yes, that's the first thing, controlling the mind. And the mind is controlled by engaging it in devotional service. If the mind is not engaged in devotional service, it will be engaged in material activities. So the point Prabhupada explains in a purport here, yes, we should act to please Krishna. If you have material desires, you dovetail them in the service of Krishna. Then it's like the poisonous teeth are taken out of the serpent of the senses. Then we don't have reaction. So that is very important. Whatever we do, we should do in devotional service. If we have material desires, we use them in Krishna's service. Unless they are sinful, we cannot do. But all other desires we can use in the service of the Lord. So I've been informed that it was half an hour, this class, so we have a few minutes for questions, if someone has questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance. It's all glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisance. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, we have these desires, and these material desires are unwanted. It's like playing with fire. Now, we also know that Krishna is our father, and we are his children. Now, if a child is playing with fire, the father will always come and stop him and not let the child exercise his free will, because the child gets enjoyment or whatever it is. So on one end, we can understand that Krishna allows us to indulge in all this material desires because of our free will. But then on the other side, we know that he's a father. How does he permit us to misuse our free will?
Yes, that's a very good question. The point is that Krishna respects our free will. But what does Krishna want from us? He wants to love us, to love him, to give our love to him. He wants our devotion. And you need to have free will to love someone. And therefore this is so important, this free will for Krishna. He allows us, but it's reluctantly, because he knows I have to respect the free will of the living entities, because I want them to love me. And that's what Krishna wants. Without free will, there's no question of love. And it's true that it's bad for us, but he's a father, like you said, and he gives us reactions. Why? It's for our reformation, and that's a good father. He gives the punishment when needed to his sons or daughters, so that they can be reformed. That therefore this system was created not by Krishna, but by us, by our material desires. And Krishna wanted to give us the experience we wanted, and here we are. But free will is very essential. Does that help to understand it?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Good. If there are no further questions, I'll time is up, half an hour. Then I wish you all the best today and a very Krishna conscious day. When you do your work, surrender to Krishna. I mean, if you have challenges in your work, pray to Krishna. Offer the results of your work to Krishna. Think always of Krishna. Jai Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.